Welcome, Mr. Ken Burke, aka the old rickety bastard from Project 007 graduation class. Ladies and gentlemen, Ken Burke was in my project graduation class. For those of you who've been listening in to the past, you know that the project is a 75-hour intensive boot camp style, Marine, Navy SEAL style hell week that we put ourselves through. We actually sign up and pay $10,000 to $15,000 to go get our asses kicked, because we want to improve our leadership. We want to improve our life. We want to improve our quality of life. And Mr. Burke did it at 56 years young, when most people do it in their mid 30s to late 30s. So he was officially the oldest rickety bastard that graduated from the project. And I tease him because that's what his nickname was in the project by instructor Steve, aka Steve Eckert, who was previously on the project. But I love Ken because he's got tenacity. He's got a story. He's been through many things. In the last decade, he's had 3 real careers, right? And he still has been always wanting to level up. And one of the things that, I know him on an intimate level, not on an intimate level, but intimately, because we shared 75 hours of hell together. We cried together. We hugged together. We lifted each other up. We pulled each other down. We had conversations with real feedback that people don't get their entire lives, but we had real conversation with real feedback that really stuck with me and probably stuck with him too. But it didn't start last month. His story started years ago, but why don't we go back a decade or so that we were talking about, and tell us, as you know, this is a podcast about people sharing real stories and real challenges that they've had to overcome. Tell us a little bit about you. Welcome to the show, Ken. I love you, brother. You're a badass. Ladies and gentlemen, this dude is a badass. But welcome, bro, and tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, well, first off, Vikram, thanks for having me. Of course, anytime to get together, spend some time with you, and now in this forum with your listeners, outstanding. I wouldn't miss it. Even as we discussed before, we are in the midst of tax season, so I'm going to make time for this.
Super appreciate that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess with that introduction, thank you for that. And thinking back 10 years, like how did I get to where I am today? My background is as a CPA. I was a tax partner in a regional CPA firm, and at a point in time, I was 45, roughly. So it's really like 12 years ago. But at 45, I was at a midpoint in my career, and then under traditional, say, retirement targets, I would be maybe another 20 years in the profession. And at that stage, too, my oldest son, Mike, was a senior in high school. So he was getting ready to go off to college. And at that point in time, for any of you that do have kids and as they get older, that's probably the first real transition time frame. I mean, they're growing up, obviously, continuously, but that big transition of when they leave your home and they go somewhere, well, they go to college, they're living on their own. So it was a transitionary time of my life. At that time too, career was going great. I mean, the finances were good. Family was not, I wouldn't say where it should have been, because I was overcommitted, I feel, to the firm, to the profession. And even in reflecting on that, I kept my schedule probably a little more reasonable than some of my partners, and but I felt like I was overcommitted, like I was missing too much, and I began to resent what I was doing. So leading up to that point in time, I really felt like I couldn't make it the next 20 years in the industry, or staying with the firm. Again, money was not an issue at that stage in my career. It was just going to continue to get better, and so whatever those results might have been, I don't know, because I did make a decision to go. But I did a lot of soul searching. It took me about a year to come to grips with a decision to go, and then I had to figure out what I was going to do.
Yeah, you know,
So
it's interesting. I just met with Bedros, who's the founder of the project. He's also my personal coach. And he
yeah,
goes, you know, most people, most men start reflecting if they're going to reflect. Most men start doing it somewhere in their late 30s and early 40s because for them, either there's been enough life happenings or there's a new life event that happened and they start
yeah,
looking back and they're like, damn, this was a great life, but what do I want for the next chapter? What kind of, it's not about income production. It's now about impact on family or impact on community or impact on something else other than just like, hey, let's burn the midnight oil and make a bunch of money.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I would agree. You know, the money becomes it becomes irrelevant. It has no specific value to it. If you're, it's a number on a piece of paper, you know, on a statement. And so, I mean, to Bedros's point, I mean, leading up, Vikram, up to that point in time, I mean, I was constantly thinking about this, you know, even 10 years prior
Right.
uh, to making this decision. But it was a major decision because my son was my wife didn't work. She was a stay-at-home mom. So she worked in the home raising our kids, which was awesome. And son was going off to college. So you know what that financial commitment looks like. And then we were in the midst of the financial crisis. So there was any number of reasons not to do it. And I just gave you three.
Right. Those
You
are three
know,
pretty good reasons, you know, single income
yeah,
household, about to get a 100 grand a month bill or, you know, 100 grand a year bill or whatever, wherever you went to college at 40, 50 grand. And
yeah,
we're in the middle of a financial crisis. So it sounds like the perfect time to reflect on life and potentially think about leaving your high paying
secure job.
job.
Yes,
Sounds like
which
what most
was,
people do in a midlife crisis. I can
yeah, of course.
I can attest to that. I shut down my business midst of a midlife crisis about 3 years ago, and you know we were doing financially on top of the world compared to what the world would think. And I just reflected back on myself, and I was like, you know, I was 36, so I was a little bit earlier in the game, and I was like, screw this, I'm done. Like I don't want to play this rat race in this particular way anymore. And I just walked away from a business that I had spent 8 years building.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
understand.
And yes, and you know, those decisions are kind of weighty, but when you make the decision, and in my case, as this major career change with a lot of uncertainty, and pushing forward and doing it, I never had a second thought about it.
Nice.
I thought about it often, but I never questioned my decision. Like, was it the right decision? Which was an odd thing, you know, because financially it was a tremendous sacrifice for the family. Although I don't know that my wife and kids really felt any kind of serious change, but it was a major change for us, you know, in the financial side of things. And I think it just proves the point that sometimes you can feel like you get a little bit trapped in a lifestyle, in how people perceive you, and you can trap yourself in a prison of your own making. You know, not to get too philosophical, but
No.
and I think that's where I was uh, professionally. When in the project we talk about the 4 F bombs: family, faith, fitness, and finances. And so, if I evaluate now where I was, it definitely was that finances were good, but I wasn't balanced in the other 3 F bombs. And
Like, what do you
so
mean? So you weren't balanced like with fitness or faith or family? What would you say was the most unbalanced part of that? Fitness, faith, or family?
I would say family.
Yeah.
Again,
And
I
I
felt like I was spending just way too much time, while at the office.
yeah.
And then, I think Steve Eggert was the one who said, if you don't have things in order, you start to create some guilt, and you feel guilty about things.
Hmm.
And the guilt uh, comes from because you're not paying attention to those important things in life. And even though I didn't know the 4 F bombs per se back then, I just did know that I felt out of balance.
But you were giving
And
more time to, if you think about the wheel of life, you have all
yeah,
these pie slices in there. You had one pie slice that was too big and the other, so your wheel was thumping along. And it was
yeah,
never, there's always going to be a thump. I mean, I don't think that you're ever going to have each of them fully balanced. But at this point in your life, you're like, wait a minute. I've been feeling this thump for a while. Some people are 5 years, some people are 10 years, some people are 40 or 50 years. Some people never get out of the thump, right? So
yeah,
some people never get to where you're at, Ken. So you should really honor and acknowledge yourself, because I do know many men that will never get to the point where they say, you know what, I'm going to do something differently for the benefit of the thump to stop.
yeah,
And so you should
yeah,
really commend yourself, but what you're saying is that your wheel of life is out of balance, and you wanted to bring a little bit more balance now that you had achieved some of the financial goals that you wanted. It's easier when the Maslow's hierarchy, when your basic needs are met. Now you're like, okay, what have I been neglecting to get these needs that I, met here?
yeah. Exactly right. And so you can sense that, you can sense when things are out of balance. I forget who it was, but who said that, maybe was it Emerson who said many men lead lives of quiet desperation?
Who I
You
don't,
heard that quote?
I've heard it, but I don't know who said it.
Only to go to the grave with the song still in their heart. So, it's applicable to like the dash, that quiet desperation that many men lead. I mean, that's where I was. That was definitely me. An interesting thing about that, in fact, um, I guess I don't know where I put it. The day that I started my coaching practice, a card showed up at my house from a colleague, and it was that quote,
That's
in
funny.
part that was inside the card. And so anyway, that's kind of where I was. I was 45 on the outside. Hey man, everything's great. Got a beautiful house, beautiful wife, 3 great kids. What more could I want? I got a nice position, in a firm, respect from other professionals. It was, all the reasons to be satisfied. Yet I wasn't,
Right.
and I couldn't really answer it. So decided to make that decision to go out on my own. Most exciting time of my professional career, I would say, even though it was just the thrill
Right.
of what was at stake. I guess I don't know. It was feeling like you're playing in the Super Bowl,
Every day.
because the stakes are high, and so I loved it from that perspective. Every time I got a new client, every time I sent out a bill, and got paid, it was great.
I know the
And then,
feeling.
yeah, of course, right. And many of the clients, I did some work with my former CPA clients, and they all said, we never looked at you as just as an accountant. They always looked at me as somewhat of an entrepreneur, always trying to bring a different level of advice, maybe a little bit more uh, expansive or a different dimension in terms of advice and counseling, for business owners. So
Well, I want
that
to
was
back up a
reassuring.
little bit. There's two things
Yeah.
that you skipped. One is the dash. The dash is, so for those of
Oh
you who
yeah.
don't know the dash is the time you're born to the time you die. The dash is everything in between. And so that's what when he says the dash, it's what are you going to do with your time in between the time you're born and the time you die, right? And that's what most people don't think about, is how limited the time actually is. So we all think we have a long time here on this planet, but really you don't have that much time when you're able to have impact. And the
Yeah.
second thing that you forgot to mention is that when he decided to leave his corporate job, he decided to become a business coach. And that was
Yeah.
during the 2008 financial crisis. So he decided to become a business coach when businesses were shutting down left and right. Not when
Yeah.
businesses were booming in like 2012. He decided that in 2008, when he had a great position making a bunch of money, life was comfortable. Let's decide, hey, honey, by the way, I'm going to go from making a bunch of money to making $0 and no commitment from the firm. I'm now an entrepreneur. I'm going to go from a W-2 to a 1099. I have to hustle every day to make ends meet. don't worry, everything's going to be fine. But we're in the middle of a financial crisis. And I know that because I'm a CPA. So I can see the books of the people are going to start. And he became an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
things
And,
are
when I told,
appropriate.
when I told my wife, what I was doing, we were on our way to my son's football game. And I said, hey, I think I'm going to leave the firm. And it's actually, of course she had some questions. And
As
we were talking
anybody
about
would.
it. Yes. And then she said, well, I'll tell you what, she said, I trust you. And, I know you'll figure it out. So then I was like, holy shit, this is really getting real now.
Because you were
I
hoping
better
that
figure-
you're slightly hoping that she was going to pull the rug out from underneath you and ring the
Yes.
bell for you and say, no, we're not doing this, honey. But she was like,
Yeah.
I got you, boo. You'll figure it out. You're like, ah, crap.
Damn it. All right, we're going, man. Fuck it. We're going for it. And so, that's what ended up happening. And
So you did that for 5 years, correct?
so I did that for 5 years, and in that process is, it's like anything else in life. You move forward in the direction of your goals, your dreams, what have you.
Right.
And it's other opportunities open themselves up. So it's almost, the term is the corridor principle. You walk down the hall, and more doors open up for you. And that's exactly what happened for me. I ended up working with a High Falls Advisors, which is a wealth management firm. So they hired me as a coach and a consultant, and worked with them, helping them to grow the business and bring some structure around the business. Great people to work with. They were an awesome client. And then they asked me to come in-house and run the company, which I did. And then found myself with an opportunity to buy the business, which I did that as well. So a funny parallel story. Well, go ahead.
You've always had a little bit of an entrepreneur kind of bug in you. It needed you to take that first step. And when you took that first step, back in 2008, 2009, that probably opened up a ton of confidence in you that, was a little dormant. It was there, but it was dormant. It allowed you to see what people actually thought about you. Like, Ken, we always thought you were more of like a team member or a coach to us. You weren't just the guy that did our numbers. You always had a little bit more to add than our other accountants did in the past. And it allowed you to probably see yourself differently because you knew you could make it. Because if you can make it in 2008, I mean, shit, outside of what happened last year, we've only seen good times.
Right.
And so it gave you that opportunity maybe that a lot of people never take, which is the first step to taking some risk on yourself. You're actually looking in the mirror every morning saying, I got this, I got this, I got this.
Yeah. The irony in that, Vikram, also is 0809, as we know, was a very difficult time for business and for, among other things. But when you think about it, when do people need business coaching and advice? When they're struggling.
Right.
And so from a market point of view, it was actually a pretty decent time, other than financial budget, right? Because, however, it was, business owners were willing to make the investment to help them navigate through this because it was painful.
Yeah.
And
well, people will spend.
So another thing I'll just mention about that time, and then we can, begin to start coming up to the project. But Steve Eckert would say, one of the project instructors, you need to manufacture adversity,
right,
in order for change and for real growth to occur.
Right.
And if you think about leaving the comfort of the firm and starting a practice on your own, with no revenue, that was some adversity. That was self-imposed. And so that I really think was a catalyst to whatever that next level or next stage of growth that I needed to go through personally. But like everything in life, the learning, the experiences are never over. You continue to learn, and you continue to put yourself in situations where you got to be outside of your comfort zone, and that's where the growth occurs. And you need people around you that are going to help you do it. you know.
Yep.
Uh, but clearly the experience of the project for me, being older, um, certainly needed the help of the teammates,
Well, dude, you were just
you and
crushing it. I
everybody.
mean, you walked into the project, you were in like primo shape, and you had no health issues during the project whatsoever. I mean, it was like a breeze in the park for you. Like you were just like, it was like tennis, right? No issues at all,
Yeah,
correct?
a day at the club.
Of course, that's
Yeah,
what white people do. They go to the country club, they play golf, they don't have any adversity in life. It's just your privilege, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. But I would just encourage people, if they're having these struggles or having these thoughts, pay attention to them. Begin journaling, write them down, because it's helpful to live an examined life.
Yep.
And you know, another comment I would just make about the fear factor, which holds people back, I think, in a lot of cases. I will tell you for certain that we overestimate fear as we're making decisions. So we make the potential for failure this big ugly monster, and it isn't. Failure is part of the success process. It's part of the success formula. So screw the fear, embrace it, and go forward with it. And the circumstances will never be as bad as your worst case scenario. It just doesn't happen.
No.
We over exaggerate it, and
So
that was my experience. So if you
what
want to go for something, you freaking go for it.
what brought you to the project? I mean, what was like the reasons behind it? And you don't have to go into deep detail. If you want, you can, but obviously there's something that happens to you at the age of 55, 56, right? That you start to re-examine your life, right? You had a good life, right? You had some hardships, but overall you've had a pretty good life. But at 55, 56 years old, you start reanalyzing your life.
Yeah, yeah,
What
and
changed that you want? I mean, you got the firm, you're a partner now, you got the job, you're an entrepreneur, you're doing your thing. Why go to put yourself through? I mean, literally, ladies and gentlemen, the project is hell. I mean, it is as close to
yeah,
hell on earth that you can buy into as anything that you'll ever do. So why go and do that when you didn't have to? It's not like you were trying to be a better leader, make more money. It's not like you're trying to make connections in the world and trying to get in proximity of the instructors or, their network or their sphere. Why go through what you went through just for, and you didn't just go through it. I mean, you ended up with like cauliflower knees and arms. I mean, you were like beat to hell when it would have been understandable for you to say, hey guys, I'm sick. I'm literally, my body's like telling me to stop. I mean, you said you had like 15 pounds of extra infection on your body from dragging it through God knows what
yeah,
we were in. Why continue? Like what was your driving factor behind that? Because
yeah,
nobody would have said anything if you said, hey, I'm just beat to shit, guys. I'm not doing this no more. It's hour 50.
yeah.
I've already proven more than my friends will ever do.
Well, I mean, there's a couple questions in there. There are a couple, the why for the project, and I would just say, I always, I mean, I have carried around unfinished business. Okay,
Yep.
think about Bob Marley from Scrooge. When he visits Scrooge and he's got this long chain that he has forged during his life from a series of, say, bad decisions or just baggage, right? We all
Right.
create it, we all carry it. So even after leaving the firm and taking that bold step, I still feel like I was unfinished. And
Right.
the things that I was thinking about, Vic, were like, okay, fitness, leadership skills. My self-assessment I was not a good leader. I never really viewed myself that way, and so I felt like I had some unfinished business. Still, that leading a life of quiet desperation, and then as you get older, right, the other life events or those transitionary periods start to occur. My adult children started getting married. then they started having kids. And then, they moved out of the house. So it's now my wife and I and my nephew that lives with us. So again, transition, I think, starts to cause us to pause and consider where we are and what do we want to do differently? What do we want to change? So that was really what was going on in my mind. Another thing too, I think sometimes crisis can bring that about, and we had some of that within our family. In the about 2 years leading up to my decision to go into the project, and it related to my youngest son, and he was struggling with some things during college and after college, mostly just some personal issues, but that they were serious though, and so as a parent, when you look at your kids, and he's a young man at this time, when they're struggling and they're in a position where you don't think they should be in, based upon a series of decisions that they've made. And I'm not trying to be vague.
No, you're fine.
Yeah. Guilt starts to creep in. What could I have done? As I mentioned, why did I leave the firm? Because I felt guilty that I didn't spend enough time with my family. And, as I moved up in the firm, and by the time you get to my youngest son, I probably had less time to spend with him than I did my oldest and my middle daughter. So guilt starts to filter in. And there was a quote that I came across by Frederick Douglass, who's actually from Rochester, New York, where I live. And he was in the Civil War era, freed slave that lived up here. And he said, it's easier to raise a strong child than it is to fix a broken man. And I felt that's where I was, that he was broken, and I had something to do with it. So that was another catalyst, another reason for change, another reason to step back, reevaluate where you are. Whether how I felt about the scenario was accurate or not, it didn't matter. You know what I mean? Whether or not the guilt was justified, it's kind of irrelevant. You're feeling it. So started reassessing back in September of last year, all of that, got onto a more healthy lifestyle, lost 25 pounds,
Nice.
Started working out again, was reading some books, David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me. And as I was starting to consume more of that content on the internet, I got targeted by Bedros,
Gotta love that targeting. Gosh, right?
Isn't it unbelievable? Yeah.
Good God.
So, but honestly, that screen pop or whatever it was, for the project video, hit my screen, clicked on it immediately, started watching it, and I'm like, this is it. The headline is for those that for men that want to level up in business, life, become a better father, become a better husband, generally become a better person. And that messaging, it probably couldn't have come at a better time.
And
it
it's
was
not
just
like you were a bad dad, Ken, right? It's just that
right.
you were feeling, and this is what I love about you. And this is what as we spent the time together and we got to really bond over the 3 days that we were there and over the last month now since then, what I really love about you is that I know so many men that want to change, but they are not willing to put in the work because they know that, like you said, it's harder to change a grown man than it is, or it's harder to fix a broken man than it is to raise a strong child.
Yeah.
It takes so much work. It takes so much energy. It takes so much self-knowledge, right? It takes so much awareness. And then you got to start peeling back your onion layers about what could I have done differently? How do I go to my son or my child, right? We're talking about men. How do I go back to them and say, hey, I could have done a better job without it busting the ego. I think we live in a world of toxic masculinity, and toxic
Yeah.
masculinity to me is where you recognize there's an issue, but you can't change it because your pride is so great that you're not willing to do the work.
Right.
And so you noticed that there was stuff that you could have done differently, and you realized that, hey, I can't do this on my own. I need other people around me that I can take advice from. And you manufactured adversity, and then you created a brotherhood of people of all ages. I mean, the youngest guy in our group's 21, and you're currently, I'm sure that'll be passed in the next year or two, but you're currently the oldest person. Because let's just be honest, anybody over 50's got to be a little mentally deranged to want to go do something like this when they didn't grow up with these things. Like if you're an iron, like a tough mudder or whatever they're called, and you've done a ton of these your whole life, and then you're like, oh, the project looks like a good challenge at this point.
Yeah.
But you weren't like that. You had lost 25 pounds and you showed up fit. I mean, you showed up, you did the workouts, you put in the effort, right? Y'all, like we have a Thursday workout at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard, and you were at all of them, no matter what, rain or shine, you were working out, putting in the effort.
Yep. Yep.
And that's a character. That's a character that you have. Like, I'm going to do what it takes because I made the commitment. I mean, we had a 26-year-old guy show up that couldn't even pick the right color t-shirt for the project. And he made it a whole whopping 44 minutes before he rang the bell. They didn't even bring the bell out. They just walked him to the van and sent him home.
Yep. Yeah. And, you know, I took it serious, obviously, as you did. And,
well, the second time around I did.
Yeah. Even tougher, because if you go through, you know, as long as you did in that first round and you're thinking, yeah, I'm going to sign up for some more of this, man, that's 2 helpings of the project. And it's to your credit, man, you finished what you started. That's awesome. And, but, you know, and thinking about like when I looked at those videos, Bikram, I'm like, man, that's what I need. That's what I want. I want the results or the brand promise that the project holds out there for you, that leveling up in business and life, showing up better with your family, friends, you know, all of that. And I wanted that result. I didn't care what the work was.
Right.
So yes, did I know it was going to be challenging? I mean, Bedros says as much on the video. You're going to feel it. From the fittest to the fattest of you, you are going to feel it. And I was like, right on. But if what you're telling me is I get to the 75th hour and I have dinner with a new group of brothers, that's going to help me propel forward and to accomplish the things that he talks about, I'm in, man. I'm all about it. So,
what happened for you? So I know that we're butting up on some time here, so I want to make sure we have plenty of time to talk about it. But you've had some pretty big revelations, y'all. We graduated literally a month ago. Like, this is our first week back in reality a month ago. So we're not like 16 weeks into it. We're fresh out of the project. And since that, like, what has happened? And this isn't a sales pitch to the project. This is a sales pitch to Ken's life. Mm-hmm. What happened for you since then? So you went in for certain things, right? You wanted to level up your leadership, your brotherhood, but you really wanted to level up some of the things that you had probably neglected over the course of your life for your family. And I know that you've shared, because we're on a WhatsApp group and we're very active, which I love. You've shared some pretty cool things, which you kind of undermine, but I look at those and I'm like, damn, that's a boss. Like, that's a dude that's taken this seriously. What have you changed because of these tough experiences, right? It doesn't matter the project or you do something else that's extremely tough. What have you done because of that? And how has it affected your life? Yeah.
Great question. And so there's a lot there, and it's one of these things I think that, you know, after you get out of the project and out of that experience and you've made these new connections now with I've got 7 new brothers, and that's for real,
Yeah.
so that's definitely one thing. But like, even these things may seem small, and insignificant. Um, but like with my wife, for example, we've lived busy lives, we've raised kids, we've done the best we can. We've been married over 30 years. And it's, sometimes you can put the relationship on the shelf a little bit because you're busy doing other things, and you just kind of pass each other in the house and, grunt, maybe reach out and touch someone every so often, but you know what I mean?
Yep. Yep.
So a really simple thing, a small discipline with my wife has been to set up date nights with her. And so we're running through a series of those. We've got a couple of them under our belt. And again, it sounds like a small thing, but it's a big thing
Huge.
for us because we go out with our friends, but we don't go out a lot by ourselves.
Right.
Whether we're doing anything, nothing in particular. So the funny thing, Vikram, just quickly, that to get my wife to go, because I don't know, maybe it seems a little odd that I would want to do that now.
There's
But
also a
I
little bit of
said to her,
resistance, man. Like, ladies and
a little
gentlemen.
bit.
And the reason why there's resistance, and I can say this from an outsider looking in, is because she thinks, okay, I'm going to get my hopes up. We're going to go on a couple dates. I'm going to love him. It's going to be fantastic. And then life's going to catch up and he's going to go back to not taking care of business at home. And so there is a little bit of resistance of consistency that shows up because we're in tax season right now. It'd be easy for you to say tomorrow night, babe, it's Wednesday, but I got 32 people that I got to get their taxes out by Friday. I can't make it to date night. And she's like, in her back of her mind, she's like, yep, I didn't get my hopes up that you were going to be consistent.
Right. Sure. Right. We've got a history together. But anyway, I told her, I was like, well, maybe could you help me pick out I want to get some new casual shoes. My wife loves to shop. I hate shopping, so that was the hook. Kind of tricked her and it worked. So anyway, just kind of share that.
That's how you got a date.
That's how I got the first date.
Huh.
Yeah. So
I like the creativity. And in the past, you probably would have just been like, hey, babe, let's go out. She says no. You're like, all right, cool. Let's just stay at home and it's no big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously I didn't go to the project just to be able to have date night with my wife. I probably could have implemented that, myself.
Maybe.
But there's been some foundational principles, I think, about life.
Right.
That I've come to realize. And we talked about it already. Did you want to jump in?
No, I was just going to say, like, the little things, I've been married, I've been divorced, I've been in some relationships, some were better than others, but you made a point over the weekend. You said, I'm going to stay up late and bring charts, or not charts, but paperwork home so that I could see my, was it your son and daughter-in-law or your daughter?
My granddaughter.
Yeah, your granddaughter.
And and eventually my son, yes. But my granddaughter, yeah.
So that's a mindset shift that I think is important because it's like, first you make the mindset shift that I'm going to make date night happen. Seems small and insignificant, but dude, my parents have been married for a long time. They don't do dates unless it's a national holiday. Like, and even then it's not themselves. It's like 30 other people. So it's not like they get to just hang out and do something themselves ever.
Yeah.
And I've been inside of houses. Like I started selling knives at 17, real estate. I've seen the inner workings of husbands and wives. There's no date night, dude. There's no family time. It's like family time's dinner. Now everybody's got their cell phones. There's no like connection. So you might think it's insignificant, but the fact that you're making those little shifts add up to a lot.
Yeah. And so it was that decision on, Saturday could be in the office here working on returns, which I need to be doing. However, my wife was going to be babysitting our granddaughter. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be here. I'm going to keep my word, my commitment. We talk about that in the project, that I'm a man of my word. And so, that was what that was all about. And I would have to say that, making these commitments, say, whether it's to exercise, nutrition, spending time with family, connecting with the brothers, staying connected with you guys. In the past, I would think, you know what, I'll probably do that for a week. It's like the New Year's resolution stuff, and then you fall off. But one thing that the project taught me, I think, is though you need to maintain those commitments, that do the things you say that you're going to do, regardless of the pain or the adversity that you have to go through to do it. And that's how you get to the end of the week in the project. It's that you are committed. There was never, I mean, not that you don't have questions like, what am I doing here sometimes, but
A lot of
the
those
idea
times.
of quitting,
Yeah.
or ringing the bell, just wasn't even, a thought. Um, so this, I just think I believe in myself enough. My faith in myself
Hmm.
is at a level where if I commit to doing something, I know that I'm going to do it. I'm going to follow through.
Yeah.
Because the person you got to trust the most in life is yourself,
Yep.
right? And if you can't
Absolutely,
build
bro.
trust in yourself, then what else do you have? So it's that personal faith of overcoming adversity, like we did together.
Hmm.
Frankly, having to ask for help and being vulnerable at times,
It's hard.
as a man, not easy to do.
And not just as a man, but as a man who's overcome so much. See, people think that like just because you got a good job and a career and now you're a partner of the company you're in, that your life was easy. And they don't know the underlayers, right? They've never
Yeah.
peeled back the onions. And we don't show that on Instagram and Facebook. Nobody shows like hey, I just got kicked in the face by this or that, right? Like everybody's got family issues. We all do. Like I have family issues. I've struggled with lots of addiction and divorce and jail and things of that nature. And people don't want to talk about that. My mom was always like, why do you talk about that, son? I'm like, because I don't want to have shame in my life, mom. And if
Yeah.
I bury that and bury that and bury that, it sucks. And I crawled through a pit with like 16 men and then 10 men and then 8 men. And those 8 men that I crawled through, I can call them for anything. And I
Yep.
want to be able to share my life with other people and not feel ashamed, because that's just who I am. Like for some reason, I feel the need to get things out in the world. I don't know
Yep.
why. It's just always been, even when MySpace was around, my mom's like, why do you share so much stuff online? People are going to have the third eye, like the evil eye towards you. And I'm like, fine, mom, let them have it. Like
Yeah.
that's their problem, not mine. Maybe it changes one person, right? But people
Yep.
always think like, dude, you got an easy life. You got a nice house. You got a nice wife. You got kids, right? But there's a lot that goes into it behind the scenes that can be really hard and painful. There's a lot of work to create a lifestyle that you had. And there's a lot of, adversity every day. And there's
Hmm.
always the inner demon talking to you.
Yeah. And telling you that that you can't measure up, or you can't complete the task. But the project was really profound in many different ways. The personal discipline, the seeking out opportunities to grow, which is and then our way of saying that really is the manufactured adversity, and
Yeah.
overcoming adversity, because it certainly makes you stronger, in all areas of your life.
What do
And
you
then
want
it's,
for the next couple of years, Ken?
well, definitely the continued growth and embracing the lessons. I didn't want the project to be the finish line. It was the starting line, I think, for us. So yeah, you get through the week, and you graduate, which is awesome, tremendous accomplishment. But it's like, okay, now with this knowledge and the responsibility that we have, because we are different now and we are changed,
Yeah.
now what do we do, right? We have a tremendous responsibility, not only to ourselves, but those around us, those in the community, um, to be a modern day knight, and stick and live to those values. So, these next couple of years, progress, not perfection, going to continue to push, in all of the areas, in the 4 F bombs: fitness, finance, family, and faith. Continue to push forward. I've become one thing that I've noticed, and I've shared this with instructor Steve. Um, I'm a little more comfortable in my own skin about progress, and knowing that I'm not going to make the changes overnight. Some of these are changes that are going to require some time, continued effort, persistence, and until things become a habit, and you have to continually check in on these things. I just feel like I'm much more comfortable with that as a process, as opposed to working out for 2 weeks and thinking I'm going to have a six pack. It just,
A little bit of
maybe it's
grace.
realistic expectations, but also being comfortable with the process, man,
Yeah.
because that's what it's about. And I think it's the project that has also given me the vision for what's possible within the dash, within your life. And I think the possibilities are way bigger than we've ever thought, in terms of what we can do, who we can help, how we can be a servant. And that's pretty cool. When you have that realization, man, like that there's literally like no limits.
It's
And we're
amazing how
surrounded.
when you go through such difficult physical adversity
Yeah.
and you come out of it, at some point the switch flips and it's like, all right, so you want me to do what? Okay, done. You want me to do what? Okay, done. Okay, done.
Yeah.
Okay, done. Like you don't even think about it anymore. You just do it. You're like, okay. And then and it's funny because the instructors know when the flip switches for
Yeah.
everybody, because then it's like, all right, we don't need to abuse them as hard. We're still going to push you, but now it's time to learn because we're not going to throw anything at you that you're going to even think about. You're just going to go out and do it and do it and do it and do it. And no matter what it is, the pain, the suffering, you just figure it out.
Yeah.
And it's
Yep.
amazing how much we limit ourselves in life with our thinking. It's amazing how we keep ourselves so small because that's the thinking. But if you're a child, you think you can take over the world, and then you become an adult and you think the world is taken over you.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, and having that, that mindset,
Yeah,
that you can accomplish and overcome things, because it's,
totally.
yeah. So it's a tremendous transformation. So glad that I did it. I look back at these things sometimes, Vikram, and I'm like, I can't believe I signed up for that. I can't believe I left the firm, but I'm proud of those decisions.
Yep.
Definitely proud of those decisions. Some of the best affirmations that I've received, not only from you guys and in our class and in the brotherhood in general, but my kids. My daughter posted on Instagram some of the pictures,
Nice.
and the post was something to the effect, part-time financial advisor, full-time badass. This is my dad. Just completed a 75-hour leadership training program, physically challenging, blah, blah, blah. It was a tremendous post, right? And to have, my daughter say, this is my dad, it was cool. And then her friends that I know from high school were all like, be more like Ken. Hashtag. It was cool. Really cool.
It sets a parameter for your children and your grandchildren. It sets a bar for them. Not like they need to, but it sets the bar like never count yourself out. Always try harder. Like there's never, as David Goggins says, there is no finish line.
Right.
My rich dad, not my biological, but my rich dad, we had dinner a couple of days ago, and he said, I don't get tired in life because I always am doing something that I enjoy. And even the times when it's hard, he's like, I got cities suing me, like not like people, I got like cities and counties and this and that. Like I always have 100 lawsuits going at one time, right? Because people always want to bring you down. But he's like, I always enjoy what I do. I know that I help people. I know that I make the world better. I know that I'm setting my family up, and it's just fun. It's just a challenge. It's a game. And so
Right.
when you push yourself harder and harder and harder and harder every day, it's not that things become easier. You just become accustomed to that challenge. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. All right. This today we got this happening. All right, cool. No big deal. All right. Tomorrow we
Right.
got that. Oh, okay. No big deal. Okay. No big deal. Okay. No big deal. And when you physically, one of the things that I try to instill into my listeners and my friends is that people like Vikram, you're so crazy. Why do you bike ride 40, 50, 60, 100 miles? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? Right? Why'd you run a half marathon? Right? Why'd you do the project? Why? And I'm like, guys, it's not why, it's why not try.
Yeah.
Why not try?
Yeah.
Like, why not push yourself to something great? Like you might fail. Dude, I fail all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but I succeed in the process of the failure
Yeah.
because I become stronger. I become more resilient. I become more of a man that I'm proud of, right? All those things that happen because I pushed myself like you pushed yourself. And even though you say things are insignificant, like, oh, this might be insignificant, you weren't doing it for 40 years.
Right.
So even though you know how to do things, you weren't doing them. And so the fact that you started after something that challenged you doesn't matter because
Yeah.
that shows an example to the next generation of how to show up. That shows the example of how to be a good man. That shows the example of, hey, if your husband's not doing these things, right? They don't have to go to the project, but if they're not doing these things to be a badass for you, there's a problem and you guys need to address that. And
Yeah.
you're never too old to address things that matter to you.
No, there can be plenty of life left, after 57, but you do get to
Dude,
that
you're
point where
young,
you
bro.
start using your age as an excuse.
You're young,
Uh,
bro.
right? I'm 57. I mean, I should be finding my favorite spot on the couch, you know, drinking a couple Manhattans when I get home from work and get fat and out of shape.
Yep.
And, if I can spend time, if I can even bend over and pick up my granddaughter, that's a win. No, screw that.
Dude, the
I'm
business
never
side
going to
of
hold
me.
myself. I want to hold myself to the standard of your physical conditioning. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not the physical conditioning of a 57-year-old,
All right.
fat ass sitting on a couch.
And I want
I
to
want
hold
to
my,
ride the 40 miles on the bike.
yeah.
I've already done a half marathon, but not the way you did it. You never ran one and you did it. That's freaking awesome. It's
You know,
that kind of stuff.
we all expand. And that's the thing, that I love about the people that I hang out with, because
Yeah.
I look up to, whether you believe it or not, we all in the group look up to you. And we're like, everybody razzles you, but we all have so much respect because you didn't have to show up. You didn't have to complete, and you didn't have to complete injured. And, basically your body was shutting down against you. And you
Mm-hmm.
still led the way. You were the honor man, right? Out of all of us there, you were chosen as the honor man with
Yeah.
due respect from everybody, because you held it together and you held us together. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and there was moments where I looked in and I'm like, dude, silent leadership is so important. And then there's times where you gave feedback where it was like 5 words and I was like, damn, that was so powerful. Right. And there's so many different ways to step into leadership.
Yeah.
And that's what's fun about life, is that when you do tough things and you break down the walls and the pain is like, okay, I can get through the physical pain of life. Now it's just the mental stuff. Then you can do anything. Like, we push ourselves only 30% at max, maybe 40, and a few people go 50, 60, right? And so in life, like the more we push ourselves, the easier things get and the less we become just soft around things. We just become
Yeah.
less soft. And it's so cool when you just show up every day and do the cool things and do the hard work, because life becomes exciting at that point. Ken, where do people find you at? If somebody wanted to reach out to you, where can they find Ken Burke?
Well, I am on Facebook and Instagram. Don't ask me what my handles are there. You obviously have them.
It's
But
Ken Burke 007 on Instagram, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah,
And he only
thanks,
made that for
thanks,
us.
brother. On the Instagrams, you know.
And if you had
So,
some parting words for people your age, older than you, younger than you, what would those words be? What are those words? And I know I'm putting you on the spot because I don't ask you the questions beforehand so you can think of them. So I'll
yeah.
give you a little bit of
You know,
time.
I do have something. This will just take a minute. Do you got a
Take your
minute?
time. For you,
Okay,
I
so
got
this
10.
was what I wrote down when I was doing coaching, you know, my credo for achievement. And it came from a book, adapted really from a book by Brian Tracy. So it's a quick read, but it goes like this. It's in the understanding and embracing the concept of failure that we achieve true greatness as human beings. In the work that's been done on peak performance, we find several interesting things. It's the natural tendency for us to stay within the comfort zone. It's the natural tendency for us to play it safe and not take chances. It's the natural tendency for us to become satisfied and complacent with the current level of accomplishment and try nothing more. Yet every peak performing person, every single high achieving man or woman has been a person who's thrown off this natural tendency to play it safe and to stay within the comfort zone. They've continually tried to exceed their previous levels of accomplishments. They've continually moved forward into the risk zone to try something more, bigger, better, and more important. Every single accomplishment in our history has come from men and women who have had the courage to take the risks, to step out, even though they had no guarantee or assurance of success. And so that was I call it the credo for achievement. And it has a lot of tie-ins, I think, to what we've been talking about today.
Dude, that was a great way to finish off the call. I love it. Yeah, it totally ties. We could spend hours dissecting that.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
my therapist
So
said,
right on, man.
yeah, my
Push out of the
therapist was
comfort
like,
zone.
that, and don't fault yourself always when you fall. That's just
Yeah.
part of the game.
Right on.
All right, brother. I love you, dude. And I can't
too,
wait
brother.
to see you soon, brother. Thank you so much for your
Yeah.
time during taxes. I know this is crazy and I appreciate you. And I'm shocked to see your desk is cleaner than mine, even with all the stuff you got going on. I'll talk to you later, Ken.
Yep. All right. We'll see you, Vic. Take care.